So another type of social media that we're more familiar with are blogs and microblogs. So the earliest use of blogs was in 1994, and 1999 blogs increased in popularity. Some examples of these are Boing Boing and the Huffington Post. If you're not familiar with Boing Boing, you should go and check out boingboing.net. It's pretty interesting, and you'll see how it's similar to the Huffington Post and how they're also dissimilar. Microblog messages are significantly shorter. So, an example of a microblog that most people don't know as a microblog is Twitter. Twitter is the most popular microblog, which allows only 140 characters to be sent or tweeted at a time. It was launched, as you know, in 2006 and had over 500 million users by March 2012, who generated 350 million tweets a day. However, only about 10% of Twitter users contribute to 90% of the content. And as you know, Twitter is making considerations to actually make their tweets longer. So it'll be interesting to see how this impacts the utility of it and the communication that's disseminated from it. Tumblr is another great example of a microblog. It is a popular microblogging service that allows for easy uploads of text and multimedia. It was founded just a year later than Twitter in 2007 and derived its name from Tumblr. Yahoo spent $1.1 billion to purchase Tumblr as of June 2013, and Tumblr hosted over 116 million blogs and over 53 billion posts. The equivalent to Tumblr in China is called Sina Weibo and was founded in 2009. Its competitor is WeChat, launched in 2011, which is rising in popularity with 300 million users currently. And Tumblr is probably one of my most favorite sites because of the flexibility that goes against the rigidness that Twitter offers. On Tumblr, as you know, you can find basically anything that you want to know. You can be as creative as you would like to be. You can post pictures, content, and you can repost and reblog from others as well as outside of the Tumblr space. Wikis are another type of social media. So these are web pages that allow anyone to edit them. In 1994, Ward Cunningham first initiated a wiki called WikiWikiWeb, and this was basically for computer programming professionals or just people who are interested in computer programming. In 2001, what we now know as Wikipedia was created, and basically wikis allow people to add in their content. So it's not necessarily checked unless it's checked by another person who has the same set or advanced knowledge on the topic. Oftentimes in classrooms, students will say, well, can I use Wikipedia? Like, sure, you can look at Wikipedia for knowledge. You can look at it to get a general understanding of what happened, but that shouldn't be your main source because it's not being checked by an authority or an expert in the field. However, what I do tell students is while you can't necessarily cite the Wikipedia page, you can go and check out the references. So if you're ever interested in that, and finding out if the information that's provided on Wikipedia is correct, look at the references and see what they connect to. Another type of social media are social networking sites. Obviously, in 1995, there was Classmates.com. In 97, 6 Degrees. In 2003, Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook popped up on the scene. And in 2011, there's Google+. Additional sites like LinkedIn, Dockster, Pinterest, Flickr, Foursquare, and Looped were added later. As you know, there's also Snapchat, there's Swarm, there's almost a social media site for every person out there that's not to exclude like sites like Tinder, and I think there's one more congressional site for people who are more conservative that want to date. So basically any social media site that you want to find that's based on what you do in your world and that connects with your life, you can find. And they'll continue to grow and continue to pop up each day. Producers and producers. In the 20th century, media companies determined the success of their products through audiences and numbers. These findings determined advertisement revenues and circulation patterns, which affected the cost of the magazines and newspapers. Hollywood and the music industry operated on the assumption that creating specific products would draw the largest mass of people. The internet and social media changed this worldview. Audience members and their consumer patterns would be tracked more easily. It is now possible to assess how audience members are watching and using media as a result of their interactions. The access to what we call big data has changed business strategies to capture audiences. These data are helpful but also discouraging because they allow the assessment of how fragmented audiences have become. And what's really interesting about this is when you're on Facebook and you see an ad, or you're on Instagram and you see an ad, and you have the option to allow it or to keep it. That's basically what they're doing. They're using their algorithms, they're using their data on you and based on your location to figure out, well, what is this person like? Oh, you like this picture, so you might also like this product over here. Oh, you're friends with this person on Facebook, so why don't you also become friends on Twitter, or why don't you also become friends on Instagram? So it's really interesting to see how business organizations utilize this information about you, which is semi-public and semi-private information, to gather information and to gather insights essentially about you and your practices, and hope to be able to build some type of reputation or a relationship with you. Before social media platforms became the norm, audiences could not as easily talk back to producers and provide commentary. Audiences are now involved in the dialogue and are becoming producers. So if you think you have a problem with an organization or a company, you have a bad customer service experience, you go to social media and share that and tag that organization. More than likely, if they care about their business and they care about their reputation, they're going to try to mitigate that for you. They're going to try to fix it. They are going to try to give you a coupon, figure out how they can make the situation better for you. And part of that is because they understand that the average person is going to probably come in contact with 500 other people on social media at some time. And if you're thinking about how that can double and quadruple, that can impact businesses severely. So they want to make sure, like, hey, if you're sharing this information and you now have the autonomy to do so, how can we rectify that situation? Additionally, social media allows people to build communities online, sharing their ideas and feelings connected by mutual interest. This has also had political implications, especially internationally, in the Arab Spring, as well as some of the other political events that have gone on within this country. Reputation, ratings, and trust. In the contemporary society, the sources of information are more diverse, but also less reliable and predictable. In the past, such news sources as the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times delivered a predictable and well researched type of content. Nowadays, audiences have access to a broad variety of news sources, but need to figure out whether or not to trust them. Therefore, it's essential for us to develop and continue to practice sophisticated, critical thinking and media literacy skills. So again, we had this conversation at the beginning of the semester about media literacy skills and what that means to be media literate. You know, are you going to one source for your information? Do you just get your news from Twitter, or do you go to Associated Press? Do you only go to Facebook for information, or do you check out CNN and Fox News? Do you only go to the sources that you like? I often laugh on Facebook when people share posts from The Onion, which is a satire news site, and they believe that it's true. And I send them a message like, you know, this is fake. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And it doesn't mean that people are idiots. It just means that their media literacy skills may need to be tweaked a little bit more. And so it's interesting when we think about millennials, specifically because millennials are so digitally in sync, that sometimes it can work against us. Privacy. Younger generations have fewer qualms about sharing private information and making their most personal feelings known in the world. The drawback of this new openness and availability of personal information is the fact that companies have therefore created bogus viral videos and fake grassroots blog, a practice called astroturfing. So again, media literacy skills, critical thinking skills are important here. You know, oftentimes we see on social media that there may be people who share too much. We call that oversharing, or people who only share certain parts of their lives. So, you know, our privacy is always being negotiated on social media sites, and we always have to consider what type of image am I creating on social media, because it's not the most genuine or transparent image, even if we put every account of our life on the site, because there's no way that you can document everything in your interpersonal world in that way. And there's no way that anybody's going to be that much interested in those nooks and crannies, unfortunately. Transparency is really, really important, especially given that we are sharing our information online. We hope that people are being just as honest and transparent with us, but we're human and we are imperfect. So there is not always this space for openness and clarity. And so those are consistently negotiated within the social media landscape and the digital landscape. We do expect that from organizations, though, from businesses that we support. And so we have to be really agent and cognizant in seeing if something that an organization is posting is actually true, or if they are doing so to market and to get people to like a product versus caring more about how people are using and perceiving the product, good or bad. Social media, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The term friend has gained new meaning in the advent of the Facebook platform. Many of us, I'm sure, have friends online who are just our virtual friends that we do not know. And we also are friends online with people who we do know, and they may not necessarily be friends. They may be family members or coworkers. And so if you think about the naming practices that are used on social media, we have to be fairly aware that if we are calling someone our friend internally, even if we're not noting it consciously, that we are working in a practice of communication where we are labeling someone as something that they may actually not be. In Sherry Turkle's book, she talks about how social media is making us less social. Her text is called Alone Together. If you haven't read it, please grab it. It's a really good book. It's a really easy read, and it's really great in helping us to think through how social media has the ability to isolate and separate users more easily. And so as you see in the picture below, people can be sitting together, you know, having dinner, having a conversation in class, and they're on their phones instead of socializing. So this impacts how we communicate interpersonally and helps to differentiate our social skills. If we're not using those face-to-face interpersonal social skills, then we are essentially losing them and not putting them to practice. And those skills are just as valuable as being able to navigate through our social media landscape as well. Finally, are social media making us dumber? Some would say yes, some would say no. People showcase an unwillingness to be critical thinkers due to the use of social media because it's so easy to just put up whatever you think without having that second set of eyes. Also, we're able to basically Google anything, and because we're able to do that, we're not taking the time necessarily to do the research that we're often taught in grade school or that we're even taught in the college classroom. If you can Google something and you can do it easily and you understand how that atmosphere, that environment works, you may take for granted what it actually takes for you to look up something that's not as easily explained or accessed on Google. Scholars debate often about the impact that continuous connection has on its users' long-term and short-term cognitive skills. And this is across the board. So this is not only us communication scholars. These are people in psychology, sociology, and business, because they're concerned that especially millennials and young adults and children, because you're growing up digital, that yeah, you'll have this wonderful digital skill set, but what other skills will you have? How will it impact your cognitive skills? How will you be when you're 20 versus when you're 60? What will happen to our world and to our globe and to our atmosphere? And that's a consistent debate that we continue to delve in. So this completes our chapter 7 part 2